Hello everyone, in this video we are going to explore Google Sheet equations, majorly the sum equations in Google Sheet. To get started, let us see. As you know, to get started with the equation, you need to press equal to and then start writing the equation that you want. And Google Sheet will give you all the related equations. So let us first look at the sum equation. Now, what you can define in the sum equation either the individual block or the range of data that you want the sum of. So let's here look at the example. This is the sales done by Alice and Bob, and we want to find out the total sale. Instead of adding, all we can do is write the sum and define the range or individual cell. So here I can just, while we are in the bracket, I can just press Control and select the other individual cells. Or I can also define the range by selecting the first cell, press Shift until the sum of what we need. So here we want the sum of these. We can just define it and press OK, and we can get the total with this equation easily. The next is the if. And in if situation, we give a criteria and ask Google Sheet to write something or give an output if something is true, else give another output if it is false. So in this if, we first define the criteria which we want to check, and then we ask Google Sheet to write either true or yes or whatever you want if it is true, and what it should show if it is false. So let's see with an example. Here in this cell, let us imagine that we are looking for which one of these is a sale as which was done more than 35K. So in this situation, we can check if in the bracket you define first the criteria, and we in the criteria we want to check the column value and see if it is greater than 35K, and if it is, write star, but if it is not, then less than 35K, write this. So if the situation is true, if this criteria is true, then write star, otherwise write less than 35K. So here, since it is showing star. Now as soon as you drag it till here, it copies the situation for each of those respective blocks. So as you can see that it is considering D3, and here it is considering D4. So here we got whether it is a star sale or it is a sale less than 35K. Now if you're wondering why to do this in such a small database, but this is very useful when it comes to a very large database. Now let us look at the next equation, which is SUMIF. Firstly, why to use SUMIF? Suppose that we have the sale for all the salesperson in all the regions and for all kinds of product. But let us say I want to find the sale only done by Alice. In this case, we can use SUMIF. In the SUMIF, we want to find the sum of a range only for those which are Alice, which means with a filtering the sales of Alice based on what value is there in the A column. So here we can go and let us see what is the syntax for SUMIF. In the SUMIF, in the bracket first, define the criteria range that we want it to consider to check the criteria, and then we define the criteria what it should check, and then based on that we need to define what is the range that we want to find the sum of. Let's see with an example. Here we want to find the sale of Alice, so we are going to use SUMIF. In the bracket we are going to first define the range of the criteria that we want to check. Here we want this column to each of this column value to check whether it matches Alice, and if it does, include in the sum range. And this is the sum range. By pressing shift, I first clicked on the first and then press shift and then the last, and that's how I will do that again. Press shift and then the range is set. So here, as we can see, all the yellow ones are the Alice's one, and when you add up you get the same amount. Now what if I want to find Alice sale in north and south separately? In this case, we want two criterias. One, that it should belong. We want to find the sum of this sales, but we want to filter it out based on two criteria. First, that it should belong to Alice, and the second, it should be in North region. In this case, since we have two criterias, we are going to use SUMIFS. For the SUMIFS, the syntax is that you first decide the sum range. Unlike in SUMIF, where you last, it is decided in the last. But here, that is the first thing that we decide. Then we decide the first criteria range, and then the criteria first. Then we can decide the second criteria range, and then we can write criteria 2. And this is the SUMIF equation. So let us see with an example. Here we want to check if what is the sale done by Alice in the north region. So in the SUMIF, we first define the range, select shift, and the sum range is defined. Now first criteria range, this criteria range that should be checked whether it matches with Alice, and then the second criteria range, and now it should check whether it matches with north. So in this case, since we know that these two matches are for north, and you can see that it gives the right input. Similarly, you can do to find the sum of Alice sale in south. I'm gonna do it again. Check whether it matches with Alice, and for the second range, check whether it matches south. Press enter, and now it's done. Now let us jump to the last, subtotal. For subtotal, the syntax is 9, since it denotes the sum. So it's going to be constant if you're trying to find the sum. And then you can either define the range or individual blocks to which you want the sum of. So let's see where it is used. Imagine now we have applied a filter in the total sale, and I am applied a filter to see only the not sale. But here, where we used the sum equation, it is showing the total sale. It is not filtering the total based on my filters. In this case, if you want the total to show only for the filtered equations or filtered data, then you can use subtotal. In this, you can define 9 and then define the range, which was D2 colon D7. And now, if I remove the filter, you see how it starts including all of the data or all the cells which are there visible. And if I start putting filters, then it updates the total based on what is filtered. And let's say if I only do Alice for North, you can see that I can see the updated total. So that's it for today's video. Thank you so much. Stay tuned for more.
Thank you.